let's do this. Next up, we have something different featuring Talur by Derpcat. And apparently this is a Geometry Dash track. Once again, everybody, this is a Basterd's LFA, a layman-friendly analysis. I am a professionally trained musician, a composer, and my objective here is to explain things in a way that you don't have to be a professionally trained musician to understand what is going on here musically. If you're watching this on the video archive, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Like the video, share the video, leave a comment, notifications on, all that good stuff. Keep in mind, this is recorded live on stream. This is my first time hearing this track, so I will be pausing a lot because I'm going to be pointing things out as I pick them up. I will be linking the song in the description so that you can listen to this in full if you want. Of course, as I just said, this is recorded live on stream in a single take, so I might stumble upon my words, especially right now. I messed up my left shoulder, so I might get distracted by the pain. So, let's do this. Let's do this. Something different. Let's see what we got. Okay, the subtitles were distracting. Okay, so we have several elements going on at the same time right now. First, we have the piano giving us what could be a motif. We are having several, as I said, we have several things. We have this synth going upwards, which could be just an arpeggio. Arpeggio being when you play a chord one note at a time. Then we're having the piano giving us this downward going. I like this contrary motion. Okay, first concept of the day, we have the concept of contrary motion. So in counterpoint, there are many ways you can do several things. Counterpoint, the study of having more than one melody developed at the same time. And in this case, contrary motion basically just means one melody is moving one way and the other melody is moving in the opposite way. That is just contrary motion. That is entirely what contrary motion is. And what we're having right now is we're having the synth going upwards, and I think it's panned to the left ear, and the piano going downwards on the right ear. So very, very cool, and we're also having the drums setting the tempo and everything for this. Let's see where this goes. Yeah, the piano is panned. The piano is panned, so let's just address that right now. So the concept of panning, of course, for those of you who don't know, is nowadays we have standardized stereo. Right, so we have left speaker, left ear, right ear. Then you have the listener, the second. Here's you, all deformed, happy, yet bald, therefore evil. So when it comes to panning, you can split the tracks in a way. So if you have 100% of the volume going from a track in both left and right speaker, it sounds like it's coming from the front. If you turn down the volume in the left speaker, it will sound like this sound is coming from the right. And depending on the combinations you're doing, you can emulate a lot of really cool stuff. So right now we have the piano on the left ear, on the right ear, sorry, doing this very, very cool downward, like taking steps downwards. And then on the left ear, we have the synth going upwards in the melody. It's a really, really cool way of establishing this, and we're having a couple of other elements here and there. We're having the drums, a couple of other synths, adding more to the atmosphere, building up. Let's see where this goes. We're adding a couple of extra chips here and there. Let's see. Okay, we had this moment. It's a colloquial term that I'm going to use. Once again, colloquial terms means there is no academic term for it, or that I'm not using an official academic term to explain this. This is what I like to call going off the ramp. It's a very, very cool way of establishing a little bit of resolution and tension at the same time, because now we're suspended off in the air. You take away the drums for a moment, you leave everything else, you kind of feel suspended like you went off the ramp. And we now started with a very, very light drum bass, like kick drum again. Let's see where this goes. We're building up again. I like this. The kick drum is interrupting. This is something that you can really only get in electronic music. how you can actually splice the sound samples this way. So every time the kick drum hits, everything else is kind of muted off, and it comes back up in between. Is really, really cool. Doing some sick tricks on the ramp, yeah. Alright, very stereotypical, very cliche. One thing you need to know about music. When it comes to music, cliches work. Because in other things, you know, whenever somebody says something is cliche, it's usually seen with a negative connotation. When it comes to music, a cliche is a good thing because it works. And when it comes to electronic music, increasing the density and the speed of your drum, of your kick drum for a build-up, it just works. It just works, because once again, when you're making music, you're doing one of two things. You are building tension, or you're resolving that tension. That point in between, we can call the cadence. Most of the time, this is how it's going to work. And yeah, we're just building. We're just building up that that tension. Let's see where this goes. And there we go. We bring back those initial drums that we had. Hang on, interesting. There we go. We bring back those chords. We bring this really cool synth. Man, that was awesome. I was on. Let me just hear that again. Okay, we had a little fill there. The drums. Oh, no, welcome to today. How you doing? And we are continuing using this principle of the kick drum interrupts the rest of the audio going on to give it a complete focus. It's very tricky because it's not cutting off everything else, right? Like there are still things that that remain, but many things roughly around the edge or around the area of the kick drum are being muted out every time the kick hits. This is very creative. And nice, Aurora. Nice. I appreciate it. Let's see where this takes us, because at the same time, we are having another one of my colloquial terms. Again, colloquial means there's no academic term for this, or I'm not going to use it for the sake of explaining this. This is what I call a flying melody. The synth at the top is very slow compared to everything else. Like the melody is slow, it's simpler than everything else, and we have a very busy drum line, we have a very busy middle line, so that gives you that sense that there's a very busy landscape going on. There's a lot of stuff in the landscape, and you're just flying across. It's such a cool thing. It's such a cool part of this. Nice. Yeah, this is because on top of that, we're also having bells that are interrupted by the kick while playing, I think, the same motif that the piano was playing at the start. I think it's a similar motif, but because it's being interrupted like that, it's being spliced like this. It's a very, very tricky thing, and it's a huge risk that I think Derpcat is taking over here. But this is really cool. It came out really, really cool. Let's see where it goes. White space, suits. Deldex, welcome to the day. And there you go. Once again, we have that other synth going up in that motif. Finally, what are you doing? 0090, welcome to the day. How you doing? So yeah, now we have this thing going upwards. The motif is going upwards. We are visiting both motifs again. So this is. It seems like I was right. Like there are two motifs going on at the same time. We have two motifs. This is fairly rare. This is really rare to have two motifs going on at the exact same time. The motif, of course, being the smallest version of your musical idea, right? So we had at the very, very start the piano going downward, the synth going upwards. Right now we are having those bells going downwards, and at the same time we just heard that synth going upwards. We are using two motifs at the same time. That's a huge risk. That is a huge, very risky thing to do when it comes to making music, because as I've said many times before, when you're having music and somebody's listening to your music, you want your listener to both feel familiar, keep that sense of familiarity, and at the same time introducing new material. The risk there is the balance. If you keep things too samey for too long, the listener will get bored, will tune out. If you change too many things or you introduce too many things too quickly, you risk the listener getting overwhelmed and tuning out. So usually when it comes to motifs, you want to have one at a time is the safest bet. And then you can introduce another one. In this case, we had both of them at the same time. But because Derpcat used such distinctive tones for both of them, such distinctive sounds for both of them, while at the same time not that much happening in the track, he was able to successfully introduce both of them without overwhelming the listener. And now that we are revisiting these, we are checking them one at a time, but it no longer feels overwhelming. Man, this is insane. Oh, it's doing both, yeah. That's bad. Crazy. Yeah. We need that rate of innovation back. Scratch, just listen to the Expedition 33 soundtrack. Let me just go back a couple of seconds. I was reading that one. Let's see. New sound every time, yeah? Let's see. So yes, this sounds like a new drum beat completely. However, we are keeping some of the elements that we had, because when it comes to different sections in music, you will have something called form, right? Form just means the structure of your music, of the track that you're doing. Usually in classical music, it is referred to as, part A, then you have part B, you might have an intro, and then from part B you might go back to A, or you might go to C, depending on how you're doing things. But when it comes to part A versus B, whenever you're switching from one part to another, you want there to be contrast, but you don't want the material to be completely new and foreign to the listener. So you are going to keep you should keep some of the elements still there. You should still keep some of the elements from part A into part B. You just want to change the focus. In this case, we went from focusing in the upper tracks and the upper register and the upper octaves, the synths and everything, to now being more on the bass and the drums. But we're still using similar motifs to what we were using so far. Let's see where this goes. While giving this like really cool breakdown sound, right? And once again, off the ramp we go. Again, it's such a cool thing to do, and it's a very, very useful driver for changing sections. Let's see where this goes. Okay, we are doing a variation of what the piano did. Nicky Mer, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the Mosh Pit. Welcome to today. How you doing? Oh, and now we let the bells play in full. We introduce a new synth. That sounds like a guitar, and now the guitar is doing both motifs one after the other, turning it into a single motif. This is really cool. This is really good, man. This is really good. Adding a bit of extra flair. We're bringing back the drum set here. Yup, we're using... So yeah, now we are on to... And this is a very unusual thing. We are off to part C. This is not part A, this is not part B. We are in part C. This is a completely different contrast to A and B. However, this is working because while A, we had motif 1 on one ear, motif 2 on the other one. In B, we had mainly motif 1 going on, with sometimes motif number 2 being here, being kind of spliced all over the place. Now we are having motif 1 plus motif 2. in section C. Again, we are using similar elements, and we are using a slightly different drum track, a slightly different drum pattern to make sure that things stay fresh. But at the same time, beautiful. It is, yeah. Every track is, yes. Scratch. So yeah, we're having this really, really cool use. Oh. No reaction at all. It is. Scratch, I told you. It is, absolutely. So, yes, no, oh my god. Yeah, so now we have this part, still part of C, and now all we did is we changed what the drums are accenting. So when it comes to music, accents are different from... Accents in music just means which part of the measure or which beats you are focusing on. So, oh, yeah. So there's really, really cool ways of making accents, and this is one of them. Because rhythm-wise, not much has changed, but now the kick drum and the bass are focusing on very specific parts of the melody and highlighting those with accents, and it just makes this feel so different. Let's see. And we have these little breaks, right? And we're having every once in a while, like, we have the kick drum having those things, and when it stops, we have an extra synth doing a response. So not only are we having the kick drum... So, excuse me, shoulders bothering me. Not only are having the kick drum doing these accents, but when it stops, it turns into a call and response. Call and response is when one instrument does one thing, or one music line does one thing, and another one answers with something else immediately. So when the kick drum stops doing these accents, there is a higher ba-ba-ba-ba synth just playing a couple of notes, keeping straight on the beat, but it's a response to what is happening in the kick drum and the bass. This is really, really cool. Okay, and now we've completely turned around, back to the piano. This is not the original motif. Now that's a variation of the motif. We went off the ramp again, and this time, oh. Okay, yeah, we are completely different place. This is a very progressive track over here. Progressive in the sense of we have yet to fully revisit any of the sections we've done so far. Because at this point, I would dare call this section D. And we have yet to revisit any of these. Again, there are a lot of risks being taken in this track because number one, not revisiting any of the material you already used, in the sense of not revisiting any of the structures that you're using, risks the sense of familiarity, risks losing the sense of familiarity. So let's see if this actually leads back to something else, because right now I am hearing the original motif being played by one of the synths. Let's see. The golden one, welcome to today, how you doing? Let's see. So we are in this break point. Let's see where we go from here. Yeah, this feels a little bit like the intro, so it could be a recapitulation of that. I'm doing fantastic. Fantastic. Messed up my shoulder, but... Oh, what? No. Oh, we're completely... We're indeed. Yeah. Do fan-made tracks? Yes, they do. Now they do, yeah. So yeah, we are once again bringing another contrasting element to this. So yes, we are in section D, and we do have motif 1 being played, and we are just, there's no motif 2 right now. It's entirely motif 1. So, as I said, doing this is very risky. because the sense of familiar, you risk losing that sense of familiarity. So it's extremely risky. I would recommend against it. It is working. Because again, one really important thing about music, the theory, many times the theory doesn't have to work. Some things in theory shouldn't work, but they do. This track is an example of it. This is really good. In theory, you want to avoid this, but he's doing it anyway, and it is working. Let's see where you take it. Let's see where you take it. About 2 minutes left of this. Again with the drum build-up. Some guitar. Let's see, where do you take this? Okay! Okay, so we have a drum fill over there, which is what you just heard. A fill is usually something that you do as a drum's equivalent of a cadence. Repeating that again, this is very risky. This is very risky from Derpcat. There's a very big risk being taken over here. Let's see where you take it, because we have a minute and a half left. And this is a very big risk. Let's see. Alright. And the drop. Nice! Okay. Sounds like we're doing outro. Climax. So we are having some of the variations of the motifs we've heard so far, but this sounds like a completely new material. It's a very lovely melody, but now we have entered, this is either section E or outro. I think it's an outro. I think this is the outro. But we went from having both of the motifs, having both of the motifs, having both of the motifs, having one of the motifs to having none of the motifs. And just using something completely different. Like right now we're using motif 3 over here. Something completely new and different. There's a big risk. There's a big risk. So let's see. It sounds nice. How are you gonna land this? Okay, that was a recall to motif 1, so we do have motif 1. So we do have motif 1. And we finish it with a cello and piano with some... Okay, that counts as motif 2. That counts as motif 2. There you go. Okay. So once again, we went off the ramp. And there we go. There we go. That was really cool. That was a really, really cool track. With, I would say, functionally speaking, it was a very fun track, but functionally, structurally, this is really bad. It's a really nice track. Structurally, this was really bad. The problem with something like this, there is no point at which I am reminded of what the main point of this track is. Which is usually, you know, if we had done something like this, if I had done this track and I wanted to go from A to B to C to D, I would have done a rondo. Rondo is a type of structure, a type of form, rondo is one of these things that it would go from A to B, back to A to C, back to A to D, and we can have an intro and an outro on top of that, right? So there's that, and with doing that, you are hammering that A section and reminding the audience, this is what we have. This is the track you're listening to, and it brings that sense of familiarity. Now, would that work with this one? I don't know. This is how I would have done this, because then I am making sure to keep that sense of familiarity, because by the time we hit the outro, I could barely recognize the track. And that is something that you really want to avoid when you are composing a piece of music. Because one of the key things about music that you want to make sure you have is that people can remember it. And the problem is, over here, if I ask you to hum me the melody, well, there are so many variations of it throughout this track that it becomes damn near impossible. This is something that genres like gent suffer greatly from. So, very experimental. He hasn't repeated anything else in his tracks, and that is cool. That is cool. Good for him for doing that kind of stuff. But the problem then becomes, what is stopping the previous track or the next track from just being completely different and disjointed pieces, right? Because what stops this from the intro being Z and the outro being E, and then the start of the next track being F, and then G, and then so on and so forth? At what point do I recognize any of the pieces? At what point do I recognize any of the tracks? At what point do I remember any of them? If so many of these are so constantly changing. That is one of the risks of experimental music. So that is what I mean, right? Because this was still a very good track. It was super well produced. It was super well made. The use of motifs was really creative. And, you know, as I said, 2 motifs at the same time, very risky move. So when you have that, you want to hammer those as much as you can. I don't mind if the track then goes from 5 minutes to 7 minutes to 8 minutes. That's just me, right? But if I can hammer that A section more and remind the user of that, then I actually have a theme and I have a focal point of this track. Of course, the track is called Something Different, so it makes sense that you would have something different every section. However, my point here being that is a big risk, because me as a listener, I have nothing to refer back to this track. I know the motifs. I was able to recognize the motifs, but I'm professionally trained to be able to recognize these things. So a regular listener is probably going to have a little bit more trouble with that. Does this make a bad track? No, it was awesome. But that is a risk that he is taking with this. So yeah, there you have it. That was Something Different featuring Talur by Derpcat, a geometry dash track. That was good. That was good overall. That was a really good track. It's just the thing with structure and form that you don't want to take too many risks at the same time. So, there you have it. That's been a Basterd's LFA layman-friendly analysis. I hope I have been able to explain things in a way that you don't have to be a professional musician to understand what has happened here musically. If you're watching this on the video archive on the YouTube, thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, follow the channel, whatever term you want to use. Like the video, share the video, leave a comment. Turn notifications on, that good stuff. If you want to listen to this track uninterrupted, I will be linking it in the description. If you want to request a song and you're not on the live stream, go to the Discord, link in the description, and go to the LFA requests channel. Leave the YouTube song that you want there. I will review it, add it to the list if it qualifies. Video game music, Geometry Dash counts, mods count, fan songs count, and if you want to watch these live on stream, schedules are available on the Twitch channel as well as the Discord on your local time zone, so that you don't have to calculate that. And yeah, that's that. Thank you for watching. Really, really good stuff. Something Different by Derpcat. Good stuff. But